Good afternoon, everyone. It's James Carpenter with Country Living. I wanted to talk about a subject that I'm well rehearsed with, and that's automotive repair and running an automotive repair shop. So the things that I want to mention is there is so many different ways that you can get your car fixed. Totally understand that. We'll start with someone who's handy. They're good with their hands, and they can get in there and they can change parts. The only thing that they probably can't do is diagnose problems. Today's cars are highly technical, several computers on board. They communicate through a bus bar. It's pretty high-tech stuff, and even for a professional mechanic, they first of all hooked a scan tool up, not a code reader, a scan tool. And they're able to go in and look at data and to probe around and check sensor function and different things like that. But the check engine light obviously just gives you an indicator of the system that's having a problem. So you got to be careful. You might go to AutoZone, they come out and they plug it in and it comes up with an EGR code. Well, that EGR code could be a number of things. But what they'll do is they'll take you back in the store and they'll sell you an EGR valve. So be a little bit leery of that kind of stuff. So you got the guy that's handy that can do it himself to an extent. And what we've ran into in the past is they spent their entire weekend trying to fix the car and they still had to bring it to us. So if you're not fully confident in your ability, you're probably better off to have someone who knows what they're doing work on your car. Because there's so many different things you need to know about cars today that you may not be aware of, and you may mess something up by doing this or doing that. So you got to be careful. So the next type of mechanic would be the guy that you heard about from a friend. He's working out of his garage. He does stuff really cheap and different things like that. So you end up taking your car to someone who's probably a little more knowledgeable than the do-it-yourselfer we just talked about. They know enough almost to get in trouble. They're far from being professional. Keep that in mind. And typically, those kinds of people work somewhere else, so they know what things cost. So you go there thinking you're going to get it cheaper, but are you getting it cheaper? Most cases, you're paying about the same amount you would if you would have took it to a professional shop. And what sets the professional shop aside from the I don't know, I guess I'm just going to call it a lower grade shop, is the fact that we have all the systems and all the programs and most of all the insurance. If you've got your car at some mechanic shop that's not a professional and something happens to your car, then you got to go to small claims court to try to deal with it. Because chances are they can't afford to fix whatever happened to your car. Let's say your car was at their shop and somebody wasn't paying attention and they ran into it and put a dent in it. Okay. Technically, the mechanic or the shop should be liable, but without insurance, they have nobody to fix your car. They know it's going to cost several $1,000s to fix it. And you get into a bunch of litigation and legal problems. And then they probably have no real warranty. Like most professional shops have a 2, some of them have a 3-year warranty. That means that if that part fails within 2 or 3 years, you get the component replaced for free. So that's pretty huge. So you got your mechanic that works out of his garage. Now your next level up is called your independent shops. And in all actuality, I fit into that category. I'm an independent shop. Been in business for 35 years. Spent a lot of time going to business schooling and technical schooling to bring myself up to speed. So a professional shop, they know how to work on cars and they know how to treat customers. The way you get treated is extremely important. And to be quite honest with you, the way you treat us as a shop is important to us. Because the last thing we want is somebody that comes in and they're just complaining and doing this and doing that. They got all this negative stuff floating around them. They just drug it into our waiting room. And now they're trying to put the stuff off on us. Well, I've learned over 35 years that you got to be selective. You know, most people think, oh, I'm going to go to the shop and get my car worked on. The only way you're coming here is if you meet our requirements. And part of our requirements is you don't come in complaining or threatening to sue and doing all that nonsense, unless we deserve it, which we haven't ran into that. Usually if we make a mistake, we own up to it. Sometimes you don't even know it got fixed. And a lot of times you'll get an estimate and we'll run into a couple other little odds and ends, and instead of calling you back and being one of them shops that keep wanting to jack the price up, we stay within our estimate and we go ahead and bite the bullet and give you a couple free parts. And if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. But that's how you get good customer service. And then there's one other type of mechanic. Well, there's specialty shops. I'm not going to get into that. Then you have your dealerships. Okay, now your dealerships, they have mechanics and all they work on is one particular make of vehicle, like Ford, for example, or Chevy or Toyota. And they're at a little bit of advantage because all they work on is one make of car, which simplifies things. When you have multiple makes of cars, you have a lot more research and different things to get to the bottom of the problem, to be quite honest with you. And then sometimes you have to be innovative, and they have what they call, not the mobile tech that comes out and fixes your flat tire, but they have mobile techs that specialize in just programming computers, doing updates and different things like that. Because when you're a smaller shop or an independent shop, you cannot afford a Ford scan tool, a Chevy scan tool, a Toyota scan tool. You would have to have a scan tool that fits every make. Now, we use a generic one. It's made by Snap-on. It is the top of the line scanner from Snap-on. And yeah, just so you'll know, that's not cheap either. About once a year we have to do a major update, and it's usually pushing $2,000, to be honest with you. So just to keep the data current in the scan tool is an expensive ordeal once a year for those updates. So when you're looking at your shop, you got a couple things on your mind. Like, okay, I don't have enough money to even think about going to a dealership. So you take it to a friend of a friend that can fix it. He ends up, or she ends up, possibly messing something else up. So now you're into it a little bit deeper. Or they put a bunch of parts on it and it still don't run right. That's because they're known as parts changers. All right, they're following the code and they're changing the parts within the perimeter of the code, and that's just costing you a lot more money. What you really want is somebody that knows what they're doing, they can hook up to it, diagnose it, and then the service writer will take the time to write up the estimate, research the parts, and call you on the phone and give you the bad news. I know your income level has a heck of a lot to do with where you're going to get your car worked on. So an example we had today, a lady came in and she's got one of these old charity type organizations. I'm not going to give the name because that would be an indicator of who I'm talking about, and I don't talk about people, so I'm going to talk about the situation now. So she drove her car, obviously low income, just wanted us to find out what was wrong with the car and give her an estimate. She needs 2 estimates before this charitable group will make a decision on who's going to fix the car. But she drove the car for over a year with the check engine light on and the reduced power situation going on. Sometimes when you let a car go too long, it will reduce power on you. Not all of them do that, but there are models out there that will reduce the power on you. So in the process, she probably started out with a little problem that could have been fixed and everything would have been taken care of. But by continuing to drive it, she compounded her problems. One problem led to another problem that led to another problem. And one of those is the catalytic converter. That's huge. When your check engine light's flashing, that means you're damaging your catalytic converter. You need to get it pulled over and you need to get it fixed. Now, after years and years and years of experience, my customer base is what I call a quality customer base. By that I mean the majority of them make good money, they're family members, they're loyal customers that's been coming back for years, and we do our best to be as fair as we possibly can. If you were to look at our reviews on Google, we've been a 5-star shop for several years. To maintain 5 stars is, I hate to say it, but I don't hate to say it, but we're doing something right, or we wouldn't be a 5-star shop. And occasionally I'll get a negative review, but they're far and in between, maybe once every couple years. And it kind of excites me because I get that negative review, then it gives me an opportunity to respond. And I've actually had Google, believe it or not, and I didn't submit paperwork or call them or do anything, but just my response to one of these, or I think it's been 2 of them now, Google must read the response and they're going, oh, no, this is not a 1-star review. I can clearly see that the shop did everything that they should have did, and they did it right. And you're one of those people that's life is miserable. Nothing will make that person happy. And to be quite honest with you, I don't want those people coming to my business and bringing that cloud of crap into my place. So we've learned to weed those kind of customers out. I know that sounds kind of cruel, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't need all that. You can take one negative person, come in, and they can bring the whole shop down, including the mechanic out there. And now your production's affected, and the attitude of the office people is affected. I mean, it can get really ugly. Now in my early days, now remember, I started out as a one-man band, and in this industry that means I'm doing it all. I'm one man, and in 35 years I built it up to a very professional automotive repair shop. And Another thing I want to bring up is if you get this is huge, and I want you to know that us shop owners are not ignorant. We see it every day. So you took your car to a shop and they gave you an estimate, and let's say for a water pump, for example. So money's tight for you, so what do? You're going to shop around. You're going to call another shop. How much would you charge me to put a water pump on XYZ car? Well, as soon as they give you the actual part that needs to be replaced, that's a key indicator that you've already had it somewhere and you're just looking for a lower price. Well, you're actually probably had it at a professional shop. You took it, you called us to see what our estimate would be for the same job. Maybe you're just trying to figure out if they're ripping you off, which I hate to say that, and trust me, I'm not one of them shops that rips you off. I don't play that. I'm a religious man, and I know that that's bad, and I won't do that, and that's part of that 5-star rating. We are an honest shop. Now I lost my chain of thought, forgot what I was talking about. But that happens when you get my age. I even see young people having that problem, so I don't really know if it's age related. You always hear about this Alzheimer's and all this other stuff. Well, I pray to God that my mind stays intact. Now, at my age, my body is obviously feeling it because I pretty much abused my body throughout my life. I did things I shouldn't have did and lifted things I shouldn't have lifted, and so on and so on. But that's water over the dam. We're put here on this planet to learn a lesson. And I believe I've figured out what my lesson was this time around. I've pretty much got a handle on that. And I'm satisfied with the outcome. It did improve me. I'm not going to get into the details on that because it's a little bit personal. But anyhow, just buyer beware. I understand if you don't have a lot of money, and I really do feel for those people. But as much as I would like to be able to help them. But in order to help them, my mechanic's going to be working on their car for less money, obviously, because if you're helping them out and they don't have a lot of money, you're going to have to do it as cheap as possible. But I got to keep my mechanic focused on the real money, the people that can afford to pay. And I know that sounds so wrong. But if you think about charity, there's nothing wrong with charity, don't get me wrong. But how much of it can you pass out? If I was let's say I was a rich man, had more money and I knew what to do with, heck, I'd probably start an auto repair shop that did nothing but fix their cars for free. But I'm not in that position. I'm still trying to put food on the table and keep my own family together, which is getting harder and harder today due to everything that's happened over the last 5 years. I've talked about that in other videos. I'm not going to get into it now. But if you're in a position to pay to get your car fixed, which is the majority of our customers, they just come and they come back and they're loyal and they make referrals and they send us other people. There's all kinds of really good stuff that happens. But at this point, I'm not running out of stuff to talk about. I could talk about all this all day long, but I put a lot of information out there that should help you in your decision making. Or maybe you're gonna hate me because not that I look down on, but in your mind I look down on people based on income, and it's nothing about that. I've been poor, trust me. I've been down to rock bottom. Actually, I got a video on rock bottom, and I know what it's like. And the biggest thing is keep a positive attitude. Regardless of how far you get knocked down, you have the attitude that you're going to get back up on your feet and you're going to gain back what you had prior to the knockdown. And what that means is you have drive. I thought about that earlier. When I was a kid, I'd get up every morning. It seemed like the sky was always blue and had these pretty white clouds. That's the way I remember it as a kid. But a day when I was a kid was a long time, just one day. And now at my age, a day goes by so quick, I don't know what the heck happened. Before I know it, I'm in my easy chair watching YouTube. Back in my younger days, obviously, I would have worked till dark. I am what they call a workaholic, and that's probably why my body's pretty well worn out. I've used it quite a bit. Okay, I'm going to stop rambling. I want to say thank you for watching my videos. Hit the notification bell, hit the like button, and leave me some comments. You got a great opportunity to ask me questions about automotive repair. Don't call me up and tell me your EGR valve's not working. I mean, I can't diagnose a car unless it's at the shop, but I can give you direction. And maybe you've had an estimate. I could tell you if that's a reasonable estimate or if you need to go look somewhere else, because there are shops out there that are taking advantage of people and they're giving my industry a bad name. Okay, with that being said, I'm going to sign off, do everything we talked about. Let's build this channel so that I can retire. And when I retire, I'll keep making videos for you. Thank you, and have a great evening.